Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the CEO of the Churchill Club, Karen Tucker.
Thank you very, very much. Hello, and thank you for joining us for the 16th annual Top 10 Tech Trends debate. What a great audience. And we think many of the smartest people in Silicon Valley are here in the room tonight, just as we have convened for the past 15 years of this program. For our new guests in the audience, a brief introduction to Churchill Club, a nonprofit co-founded by Rich Karlgaard and Tony Perkins in 1985 when they were 9 and 7 respectively. And I'm excited to tell you that both Tony and Rich are with us in the audience tonight. We convene up to 40 programs every year in the interest of encouraging innovation, economic growth, and societal benefit. And in these discussions, we seek to advance collective thinking. We ask our speakers to say something that matters and to build on insights that are out there rather than repeating them. We also seek to have good humor and fun. So you are welcome to join and stay close to the extraordinary conversations that we convene on a regular basis. We want to thank our co-presenter of tonight's program, Forbes Media, and congratulate them for their 15th annual Midas list, which is, of course, the famous list of 100 top venture capitalists in the world. A big thanks also to tonight's sponsor, Luxembourg Trade and Investment, and they definitely get applause. A lot of people helped with the program tonight, as they do with most Churchill programs. And tonight we want to especially thank Chris Stedman of Silicon Valley Bank for his invaluable assistance. SVB is among our highest level members, which also include, and you will see their logos on the banners around the room, Accenture, Airfoil Group, Bloomberg, Cisco, Citrix, Dun & Bradstreet, EMC, IBM, Microsoft, Qualcomm, SAP, Shell, and Skype, and we could not do it without them. Thank you so much, all of our high-level supporters. If you plan to tweet tonight, please use the hashtag #ChurchillClub, and you will find other Twitter codes in your printed program, and the wireless code is Churchill14. Tonight we'll be using Poll Everywhere's phone-based service to collect and display everyone's input on the top 10 trends. And Justin of Poll Everywhere is here, I believe, and he is going to show us what to do. Let me call up Justin for the trend. There we are. Hey, Justin.
Hi.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you. I just want to say it's a privilege to partner with the Churchill Club on this truly thought-provoking event. Churchill has long been a thought leader in igniting conversations about future and technology, and Poll Everywhere is absolutely thrilled to be partnering with them as a medium for all of you here today. So tonight we're actually going to be asking all of you to pull out your phones, and we're going to be voting and participating. So if you can actually go to pollev.com, I'm sure all of you have smartphones, so that's pollev.com, and then /top10. TOPTEN, just like on the screen, and there's a question. All you have to do to vote is press whichever button you want, and you should see it show up in real time. Today we're asking, what do you think is the next Silicon Valley? Which city has the culture, the universities, the market, the capital, and the next great atmosphere to be a technology hub? You can choose between Los Angeles, California, Austin, Tel Aviv, Berlin, and London. But you can only vote once. No one's liking Berlin, huh? Oh, there we go.
Good. All right. Well, looks like we have a winner.
Perfect. And as you can see, the results are coming in, and I hope you enjoy using Poll Everywhere at the Churchill Club tonight. Thank you.
Justin, thank you. Thanks, Justin. So please note that there are also slips of red and green paper on your tables. This is so that you can also vote visually, so that your neighbor knows where you stand. Simply hold up red for disagree or green for agree when invited to do so by our MCs. Our 5 speakers aren't hedging any bets with the trends they'll present to us tonight. Let's call up our prognosticators. Ping Lee of Accel Partners, Rebecca Lynn of Canvas Ventures, Mike Maples Jr. of Floodgate, Bryan Roberts of Venrock, and James Slavet of Greylock Partners. Welcome and thank you all for being here. And now let's welcome our Masters of Ceremonies, publisher Rich Karlgaard and managing editor Bruce Upbin of Forbes Media.
Thank you, Karen. We're really excited to be here. And I wanted to give a special tip of the hat to my friend Tony Perkins, the co-founder of the club, because 16 years ago in 1998, we had the first Top 10 Trends Award dinner. So, Tony, we were awfully close to a bubble that soon would pop afterwards. And you wrote a book called The Internet Stock Bubble. Are we in a bubble again? No. No. Internet boom. Internet boom. Bruce, you were here last year.
Yeah,
and the year before that. And Karen kindly gave us a list of the top 10 forecasts since 1998. Why don't you describe some of your favorites from last year?
Last year, is this on? Can you hear me? Okay.
No.
Well, I can project too. So last year, Steve Jurvetson was here, and if anyone knows him, he's like smarter than all of us put together. And his prediction won.
You got it.
So now you can hear me? Okay, good. So there were a lot of predictions. They were all over the map. The one that came out ahead, the audience favorite, was Deus Ex Machina, that machine learning will take over in 5 years. And it's, I don't know, how many of you know what machine learning is? Like, is this only this side of the room for some reason? That's the Google side of the room. It was the hardest prediction to understand for any of us humans, but everyone thought it was. I guess they just gave themselves over to the machine and voted it the favorite. That was number one. Number two was that the digital divide. If we actually bridge it, it will make the problem worse between the haves and the have-nots. Probably because once you give the tools of digital power to the have-nots, there will be an even greater divide among those groups. I think that was what, as far as I could understand, that's what it was. But it won't happen for another 5 years, so don't worry about it.
Well, I was looking back at the trends since 1998, and there have been some really big winners and some stinkers. Give me an example of the winners. In the very first year, in 1998, the conventional software model is kaput. As early as 1999, instead of buying software, you'll subscribe to software, and the software will be maintained elsewhere, whether it's on your computer or it will not be relevant. That was pretty good. Mm-hmm. And then we get to the next year, and then we get a pretty good stinker here. I won't say who gave it. Online retailers get physical. In the coming year, online companies will get into the real world in the way that Gateway already has with their Gateway stores and touch the physical world. In addition, there's a huge business for physical companies to help online companies get physical. Well, I suppose you could say that about FedEx, but not Gateway.
There's a lot of Apple stores out there, though.
Yeah, a lot of Apple stores. Well, okay, so maybe they were 10% right. Another one that didn't go quite so well, 1999, that Silicon Valley was going to go big for nanotechnology. Mm.
Yeah, when was the last time you were pitched on a nanotech startup, guys? It's been a while?
Never.
Right.
And I hate to be kind of snarky here, but Tim Draper is a big enough guy that he could take this, were he in the audience. Tim made a whopper of one not long ago, where he said he predicted in the next 12 months that Amazon's profits would double. Now, I suppose if you go from $1 to $2 of profits, that's a double, but that was funny, guys. That was funny. They don't make a profit.
I know.
They're $80 billion. They don't make a profit.
But there were some good ones. Back in '99, someone said innovation will move away from the PC, which indeed it has. Just took a while. But also someone said that natural interfaces will take off. And by natural, I guess they mean hand gestures and your physical gestures. They mentioned that the Q phone will take off. I don't even remember what the Q phone was. Yeah, right. Exactly. And that more stuff will come out of Xerox PARC than ever before. It's great. Yeah, I know.
Talented people, I guess. Well, since I did mention Tony Perkins in 2003. Tony Perkins said that Microsoft will pursue a post-IPO hostile takeover of Google. They should have. They should have. Yeah. Well, why don't you tell us the basic criteria of how we're working this, then I'll give the details of the event. We'll get started.
So this is probably the hardest thing these people will do in their year as venture capitalists. You know, one of their jobs is to predict the future. The other one is to guide entrepreneurs to greatness, sometimes both. But tonight, the object is to come up with some bold prediction that is both accurate seeming and non-obvious, and will also enjoy explosive growth between now and the next 5 years. Not easy.
Yeah, that time frame is tough. You know, it is easy to make predictions over the next 12 months. Economists will debate whether the economy is going to grow 2.6 or 2.8% over the next 12 months. It's easy to make predictions over a 30-year period because nobody's around to hold you accountable. But that 3 to 5 year period is difficult. It is the period in which this esteemed panel operates. It is the period that limited partners kind of want to know whether the startup is on track or not. And so right away, before we even get started, I want to applaud all the speakers on the panel for being brave enough to do this. It's one thing to be in a private room with your limited partners explaining why you didn't return the call of WhatsApp 3 years ago, but here in this room, with everybody tweeting and with everybody taking video, just remember that the internet does not forget, much as the European Union, I suppose, would like it to forget.
Right.
Well, some details here, and then we'll get going here. First 30 seconds, either myself or Bruce will read the trend. There are 10 of them. We'll read it out in 30 seconds. Then the sponsor of the trend has 2.5 minutes to argue for the trend. That will be followed by a 5-minute debate on the panel. And then the speaker, the person who introduced the trend, will have 1 minute of rebuttal. We have a last minute where we ask the audience to hold up the red or green cards you see. And the speakers on the panel don't have cards, they have paddles. Can you hold up your paddles to show red or green? And that way we get a vote. I think we're also involving the audience poll that we just did too. So if you can hold that all in your mind, we'll continually remind you of that. And the speakers, finally, the speakers will go in alphabetical order by last name. Trends 1 through 5, and then repeat that order for trends 6 through 10. So each of them will sponsor 2 trends. We'll go in alphabetical order by company. So it would be Ping Lee of Accel, Rebecca Lynn of Canvas, Mike Maples, Floodgate, Brian Rogers, Venrock, and James Slavet, Greylock. I guess that's alphabetical in a different way, by name.
No, we skipped the entire A through what's the letter before L?
K.
Yeah, we skipped the entire thing. And this is the entire new panel, never before on this stage, so it's got that new VC smell to it. It's good.
Well, Bruce, take it away.
Yeah, okay, so trend number 1 is from Ping Lee. Business applications we use today will be reinvented. No employee enjoys using and derives value from software applications. They use it every day at work. Enterprise software, despite moving to the cloud, is still imposed on us by IT and pulled by the user. Future enterprise applications will be as delightful to use and value add as modern-day consumer web mobile apps, real-time, data-driven, and user-designed. Ping, take it away.
So I like to do a quick poll here. So raise your hand if you actually go to work and like using one of your enterprise applications. Who likes filling out their expense reports, their benefits, their CRM, ERP? Anyone like using them?
Concur. I love Concur, by the way.
Yeah,
Just
I'm
that-
sure, I'm
yeah,
sure
I do.
you
I
do.
do.
I'm sure. Nothing like booking things on Concur. So I think,
Concur table
I mean,
back there.
it sounds like a bold prediction, but in many ways it's very obvious. If you look at what's happened from the client server to the cloud SaaS world, all the benefit accrued to the IT person, right? They don't have to rack and stack servers anymore. They don't have to worry about patching software. And the procurement CFO loves it too because now it's subscription. They don't have to buy these big expensive things up front. But the actual user, the person that has to interface with the application every day, his experience has not changed. One could argue it got even worse. It doesn't work on the mobile phone. None of these apps work well in an iPad or tablet environment. So we've been suffering with these applications for decades now. And I think going forward, there's a huge opportunity to change that. If you look at the consumer applications that are out there today, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Uber, these are data-driven applications. These are applications that, as you input data, they immediately tell you real-time, intelligent feedback that makes you do your job or make your life better. And I think that's the way enterprise applications need to evolve over time. Historically, enterprise applications, you enter something in a green screen, it goes into a database, and it goes sometime into a data warehouse, and then someone BI guy runs a report, and that report goes to some guy that then tells you that you should do something differently. That feedback loop takes weeks and months. I think the future is going to be a set of applications that are intelligent. The data goes into a data hub. The data is retrieved immediately in the application, so there is no such thing as business intelligence. It's application intelligence. And I think that's kind of the future of enterprise applications. I think it's going to be something that we're going to go to work and actually get value and productivity in the things we do day to day. And I think it's going to feel a lot more like the consumer applications we love and use outside the office.
Okay. So paddles, we do paddles and then comment. So we get a red, a green. Mike, you got red on both sides, Mike? No.
He asked for a special paddle, double red.
Okay.
Mr. No. I want to win this thing.
Let's split down the middle.
He's going to vote against. Slavet's
all
going to vote against me on anything I say. He's going to vote against.
Funny you say that thing.
I explained that this was no comment.
That's right. So the no's, we've got two no's. Why don't you guys start? James, you had a no, right?
Well, the last time I competed with Ping in something, it was actually, we were on the same team. It was several years ago. It was a dodgeball game. It was called Capital Against Labor. So it was a team of venture capitalists and a team of entrepreneurs, like throwing these balls at each other, and we were completely destroyed.
We were the last one standing.
But Ping was, I was going to say, Ping was the last one standing, and so he was definitely a warrior out there. So I did red actually really for a couple reasons. One is I think panels are super boring when everyone agrees, and so I wanted to, whoever was going first, I was going to go red. That's number one. Number two is I think Ping has a lot of expertise around this trend. I think he talked about it eloquently, but I feel like it is a trend that already is pretty clear. So that's why I went red.
It's definitely a valid reason to say to go red. Bryan?
Oh, my green was because I think it already exists. So I guess I came up with the same vote as James, but I voted wrong.
Well, yeah, if the trend already exists, you can hit Ping over the head with the paddle. Gently.
No, Rebecca would do that because she's sitting next to
I
him.
can reach him. Do you want me to hit him for you?
You can
So
tap.
yeah, no. So I think it's already true. I think in various substances, I spend most of my time in healthcare, and it was funny to hear you talk about the SaaS trend in '98. We led an investment company called Athena Health in 1999. So 12 months later, and they had it's a terrific thousands and thousands of rules. People in doctors' offices use it every day. It's cloud-based. They takes time they take to get paid. It cuts it in half, but it's been around for a decade. So I'm all in on it. I think it works.
Yeah, I think Ping's forgotten more than I know about this sector, so I'm not going to pretend to be smarter. To me, it's sort of a question of definitions, and so, like when I think of enterprise software, I think of a type of software that an enterprise globally decides to buy, makes a company-wide decision, and I think usually those decisions are not motivated on thrilling the end user or having some awesome experience, and so. While I would acknowledge that I think that the influence of enterprise software strictly defined might wane over time, it might be less centrally important to some companies, I just think there are some enterprise functions that occur that just aren't exciting. It's kind of like I take out the trash every week. It's got to happen. I'm not excited about it. And I just
You need
think
to come to my house.
And I just think that that's, you know, maybe there's an opportunity to infuse some excitement and everything, but like I just think there are going to always be some enterprise-y kinds of functions that are centrally decided and determined, and you just do it, and that's the rules, and that's that.
Like going to the dentist.
Yeah.
Rebecca, you were.
Yeah, I gave him a green. I think we're getting there. And we have a company called Convo that I fell in love with because it's just this beautiful, easy to use, fun collaboration tool. So, or platform. We can't say tool. It's always platform, right, Ping? Platforms are bigger than tools. So I think we're there, and I think we'll continue to see really interesting in companies going forward in the enterprise space.
If anyone else? I mean, I guess the question is, do you think that enterprise software that most people use is as fun and easy to use as Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn?
Not today.
So it's not. So it's still a trend that needs to happen, and isn't here yet. Rich, was that you?
No, it wasn't. I think that was, our time is up, so Ping now gets 1 minute to answer his critics.
Yeah, I think we have to separate cloud versus what I think is the future of data-driven software. I mean, cloud is actually a precondition, but I think it's not the future, right? And I think what is important to realize is most cloud applications today were built on technology stacks that are literally 15 years old, 10 to 15 years old. And if you look at the consumer web apps, you take Uber or whatever, they're built on completely different stacks and therefore deliver completely different experiences. And I think although applications are boring, like you can say booking travel is boring, but I don't know, Kayak is a much better experience than I would say what we do in the office every day. And I don't know why there needs to be that kind of a gap in terms of utility value every day. So it's not like the apps are going to be fun, but they actually have to drive value. And I think that is going to be driven upon the data that you have. Like in an enterprise, you use LinkedIn, it tells you people you may know. It's constantly making you more intelligent in your relationships. You go to the enterprise, you go to the intranet, you can't find anyone that's relevant to what you need to do every day in your job, right? And I think those are all opportunities for enterprise software to get reinvented.
Well timed. Okay, so audience, just for the visual check, let's hold up a green or a red card to see if you think that Ping is on track with his prediction. It's a lot of green.
Wow. Yeah, it looks about 3/4 green.
The cloud data.
Except the Salesforce table. Salesforce table over there.
There's like
the SAP table is
one of the companies Ping invested in, another one Ping invested in. A whole lot of green over there. A whole lot of green.
It doesn't matter how you get the votes, James.
However you get them.
It matters who
Got to
counts
bring the
the
whole
votes.
team.
So visually I see green, and then we've got on the big board,
Wow.
right?
We have 61-39.
Pretty solid.
All right, good
start.
start.
Showing.
Good
Not
start
bad.
for Accel.
Good start.
Putting points on the board.
Starts with a high bar.
Exactly.
All right, trend number 2. This is sponsored by Rebecca Lynn. The digital disintermediation and the fall of banks. From the rise of peer-to-peer lending,
Where's SVB?
peer-to-peer lending, I thought they did fall. Didn't they fall like 5 years ago? But
Every 10 years.
Too big to fall. Too big
It's
to
a
fall.
safe bet every 10 years.
From the rise of peer-to-peer lending models and digital wallets to the Bitcoin revolution, today's digital disintermediation comes in many forms, none of which is good for banks.
Did I go?
Yep.
Right, so I really predict that there's going to be a fundamental restructuring of banks as we know them in the next 5 to 10 years. And this is really due to the rise of peer-to-peer lending, mobile and cloud infrastructures. And with all of this, banks are really in trouble. They're too big to fail, and quite frankly, they're just too big to compete. They rely on legacy systems, outdated technologies, and they're very hesitant to let go of core revenue lines of their business, which they just simply have to compete in the new world. In the meantime, startups really have direct access to consumers, and they can do things better, faster, and cheaper than existing banks. And we're seeing startups in every single core system that a bank has today, from lending to payments to merchant services to wealth management, and even in the movement of money itself, a bank stronghold for years and years. In lending, companies like Lending Club, which we are a part of, completely disintermediated the entire banking system by connecting borrowers directly to lenders and cutting out the bank. And in the process, borrowers are getting better rates and lenders are getting better returns. And they're not the only ones in the lending space. There's a number of other big companies and new entrants both out there, including Amazon lending directly to small business, Wonga, and startups like On Deck as well. The entire area of wealth management right now is under siege with a number of startup companies that are just simply going on the thesis that there's a lot of people out there that are underserved. There's $13 trillion out there in unmanaged mutual accounts just because people with less than $1 million of assets just don't pay to be managed, believe it or not. And those companies, or the startups, are basically going on the thesis that algorithms can manage money better than people. And they're really proving that out. And then the movement of money itself, a bank's stronghold, is being chipped away at by a number of different cyber currencies, of which Bitcoin, I think, is probably the one that we're the most familiar with, and that promises free, real-time rails with a global ledger system attached to it. And this is really interesting as we go forward because, contrary to what a lot of consumers believe, money doesn't move for free.
All right, panelists, what do you think? And hold your paddles up high so everybody in the audience can see them.
Okay. Wow. Split.
Oh.
You won 3-2.
We'll start with you on this end.
Sure. So I hope everything you say will play out because I agree with you. The banks are painful entities. And I think there's parts of it like payments and lending. I think are areas where you can kind of win over the consumers. You can actually change the financial institutions. But there's so much structural issues that I think are more than just a technology thing when it comes to financial institutions. There's a lot of trust, regulation, et cetera, that make it really hard for banks to go away. So I think, I agree with the premise that they're going to be challenged, but I think it's not going to be replacing banks, but I think it's going to be alternative forms of payments and lending and institutions. Yeah, restructuring. So.
Mike?
Oh, I was one of the yes votes, I guess.
Okay. Explain your vote.
You still get
Yeah, I guess I think that I just think that the banks have gotten to be so used to a certain way of doing business that there is an incredible amount of gravitational inertia in terms of how they operate. And I think that people underestimate how much growth there could be in all the things that you were talking about, as well as small business lending and underserved parts of the market. And I think that it's not so much that banks will go away, but if none of the massive new growth opportunities are being addressed by the mainstream banks, their access to capital, their ability to recruit the best people, just their long-term viability as the center of gravity of financial services will start to diminish over time. So I don't think they'll go away, but I think that they'll be important the way mainframes are important today. They'll still be around, but not that important.
Yeah, in an unregulated world, disruption can happen awfully fast, but in a regulated industry where the incumbents are friendly with politicians, it's a different game. Bryan?
So I think there are going to be a ton of great startups in this space.
Remind us how you voted again?
Oh, I voted no.
Okay.
There could be a ton of great startups in this space. There's nothing in my mind that says that banks were doing all things for all people historically, right? So there's a ton of opportunity in this space, but I don't think that necessarily is going to spend a lot of time eating away at the bank's core business in the near term. I mean, yes, it's going to bring lending to people that the banks weren't lending to, and it's going to allow transfer of money that wasn't going well through a bank. So there'll be a bunch of interesting stuff. You build big. It's a huge industry, so you'll build a bunch of interesting businesses. But the impact on the bank set, I don't buy. I agree. They're big behemoths. They're entrenched, like in a foxhole. I don't think you're going to get them out particularly fast.
James?
So I voted yes. You can remember that when you get to trend number 5, Rebecca.
You have 5 votes this early.
It's just like a big partnership.
Still
I'll
playing
vote
dodgeball.
for your deal if you vote for mine. I actually like how this whole event is actually like venture capitalists spend their whole day listening to other people pitch, and now I like seeing all these people prostrate themselves to like
To
give
you?
their pitches. Not to me, to you.
To you,
So,
right.
it's to you all. So I voted yes. I agree with most of this. The part of the market that I am really intrigued about is just what's happening in the lending space. I do think P2P lending is a bit of a misnomer because the reality is most of the supply of capital on these P2P platforms, in many cases, is actually institutional. So I think it's got this sort of sheen that it's P2P, which is kind of sexy, but the reality is it's sort of like a shadow bank with hedge funds and other sources of institutional capital, just being much more efficient in terms of acquiring customers to lend to and scoring them just in a more efficient way. But I am excited about the lending, like the lending market. The digital wallet thing, not so much. I mean, I think that it's something that we've been talking about digital wallets for a long time now, and the reality is just, I think it's partly what Ping was talking about around just the compatibility of underlying infrastructure and just the lack of an application that has real breakthrough consumer benefit. I think with the exception of like the Starbucks app, which is used by like 8 million people, I think literally 8 of the 9 or 10 million people who use mobile wallets are actually basically using their phone to basically buy coffee at Starbucks. So I'm more bearish, I think, on mobile wallets. I think there's some other things that are going to happen there that are going to be more exciting. But overall, I voted yes.
Okay. Rebecca, you've got a little over a minute to try once again to convince Ping and Bryan.
So on the P2P lending, I agree. What's happened on P2P lending is it's not really P2P anymore. It's just a direct lending platform. And what they've done is just cut all the efficiencies out of the process that the banks have. And they're just connecting borrowers to lenders. And many of them still are people, they're retail lenders like you and me, and some of them are institutional lenders as well. But it's just the idea of this direct platform. And I think that's going to continue in banking itself. What I see banks becoming is just a completely commoditized product, right? Where they're at the end of the value chain. They're not getting a lot of margin on their services. And all of the high-value apps and the high-value products that directly communicate with the consumer, like Check, which was one of our companies that allowed people to aggregate all their banking on one app and pay their bills with any bank account you possibly would want to. They actually would interface directly then with the end consumer, and then the consumers never had to interface with their banks really again to pay bills. So I think what's going to happen is that trend will continue, and the big piece of the value equation will be grabbed by startups, and banks will be just commodities.
Okay, well, you ended perfectly on time.
Wow.
Let's just see what the audience thinks. First, hold up your green or red cards, and then vote away on your phones. This one's looks pretty even to me, Bruce, doesn't it?
Yeah. Plus, you should give them extra points for talking up their book.
Oh, she beat Ping.
Same.
She's up by a point on Ping.
Oh my God! Wow, look at that.
No, 2 points.
2? Wow.
The audience looked a little more even than the phone vote is.
Yeah, just a little more. Yeah, I think we need
got
more
people in
wine.
the hall.
More wine, please.
Yeah, more wine.
People on the Twitter
Need
stream.
to get a little nastier out there.
Well, it stabilized at 62 to 38. Agreed with Rebecca, although the color coding a little more even, and in fact the reds look like they had it.
So I went, like all good early adopters, I went out and got the Nest Protect smoke alarm and installed it myself in the ceiling. And now every time I walk by, I look at it, it looks like $250 stapled to my ceiling. So, it's not doing anything. And then I went out and bought the Philips Hue light bulbs. Anyone bought those? You can like change the color of it with your phone. And my wife, she gets insane when I start changing it to red, green, and blue in the office. So smart home networks and smart devices. Trend number 3. This is Mike's. Sorry, Mike. So home networking technology will see a major shift from today's dumb routers and extenders to intelligent software-powered networks that interact with devices and products in our home.
Okay. So the other day, a friend asked me to help them install a printer upstairs in their house. And their Wi-Fi wouldn't reach the printer, and their printer wouldn't connect to Ethernet, and there was no Cat 5 in that room. So I was like, okay, well, no problem. I'll go get a network extender. And so I got a network extender for them, and it turns out you can't have it be named the same network name. It'll extend the Wi-Fi, but it's a different name. And then I did some research on this, and now it turns out like Netgear a third of the hardware they sell is extenders and not the original routers. So everybody's trying to extend their Wi-Fi signal, and now they've got partition networks of Wi-Fi. And so I just think that's screwed up. And let's not even mention the fact that if you want to update the firmware on your stuff, you've got to go to the website and download it. So my theory about what's going to happen is that smart software people are going to reinvent Wi-Fi networks in the home. And it'll look more like what Meraki did in the enterprise. And so you'll be able to set up multiple access points in the home. They'll be able to talk to each other, do a handshake, extend the Wi-Fi network way out. And not only that, I believe that on top of that, you'll have the opportunity to build smart software stacks, more security. And so, for example, when your kids come home from school, it'll be able to handshake with your network. You'll know your kids are home from school. And that'll be the thing that lets smart appliances and Internet of Things in your house really work better. So my belief is that that's an interesting opportunity. There's already hundreds of millions of home networks in deployment. They forecast there's going to be multiple hundreds of millions of more. And so I think in the next 5 years, there will be multiple hundreds of millions of new home networks that are based on a software-powered network application-aware infrastructure.
Well put. I saw something on Facebook once. It was a mom. She put a Post-it note in the fridge and said, if you want to know the Wi-Fi password, you got to take out the trash. Panelists, let's vote and comment, please.
Hold them high.
Hold them high. Wow. Mike, score. Score. So everyone agrees. There's no need to just move on.
That means it wasn't non-obvious. So
Too late.
Was that
Too late.
This is probably
Votes are in. Polls closed.
If all the VCs agree, it's probably a bad trend.
Yeah, if we all agree, it will not happen.
That's right.
All right. Well, can someone tell me why they think it's already obvious, or is this just?
No, I'm hoping to suck up to Mike so that he comes and fixes my home network.
Seriously, who's got like a residential play that it can bring to bear on this? Rebecca, do you have a software stack idea for the home?
No, but I envision a day when Dropcam and Nest and everything is just completely wired. Although I am from the Midwest, and I often wonder if people that's my key question. We live in the Silicon Valley kind of bubble in a way, and it's kind of this engineers gone wild issue sometimes, right? And I often do wonder, back in the Midwest, if they really want everything to be kind of that wired up or not, and what it's really going to do for them. So I think that's my only question on the space. But yeah, I would love my house to be completely wired and to know.
Hey, Rebecca, I'm from the Midwest, and here's the fundamental difference.
Yeah.
People back there are bored. They're not looking to save time. They're looking to fill time. So that's why I agree with you.
But things like heating bills in the Midwest really matter, right? Out here they don't. They're a completely different story, right? And like getting your car to heat up before you think about having to go in it, that's a big deal back in the Midwest.
I think there are two questions. So again, I voted yes. Agree with this. I think the first one is what Rebecca was talking about, which is it's the distinction. Tony Fadell, the Nest CEO, describes it as the distinction between a B2C product and a B2G product. And a B2G product is a business to geek product. Sort of the question around, what are the applications that are going to actually be, compelling to a broader audience? And so I think right now, the smart home is definitely a B2G phenomenon. The question is, what will drive it to mainstream?
Like Teslas.
Just like Teslas. And so I think the second question, is also what is the model that will win in the home? Will it look more like an open platform, googly kind of thing, or will it be more of a sort of controlled end-to-end software, hardware, integrated, beautiful experience? I think the bet that Nest is making is that the right way to actually create the platform to start is to deliver this whole end-to-end, beautiful, integrated experience, and you can open it up and it'll be more of a platform over time. But those are my two questions, but again, overall, I vote yes.
So I voted yes as well, and I just think this has to happen. If you believe in the fact that every device in the home at some point is going to be internet connected, is going to be software enabled, you're going to need a smart home network. And I hear the B2G thing, but that's what they said about Wi-Fi 10 years ago, oh, it's just people that want to go can configure routers are going to use it. Everyone has Wi-Fi. Every coffee shop, everything has a Wi-Fi network, right? So I think the endpoints are what drove the Wi-Fi laptops, and I think there's going to be a whole set of new devices that we're already seeing, whether it's Dropcam or Nest, that are going to drive the need for such a smart home network. So I think it's going to happen even to the mainstream very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, the Qualcomm folks are here. They had a pretty cool setup at CES this year where you walk in and you open the wine cooler, you leave the door open, all of a sudden your kitchen lights start flashing to tell you that you left the wine cooler open, which is great if you have like a wine cooler in your house. But
can you imagine it's starting to flash and you don't know how to turn it off because you can't find the remote?
Right.
Yeah,
but the question is who's gonna extract the value economically from this idea of networking? Is it going to be on the chip? Is it going to be in a hub? Is it going to be on your phone? Is it going to be, that's totally up for grabs.
Yeah, so do I have some, okay, so I guess I think it's a really interesting startup opportunity, and here's why. I don't think Apple right now is spending a lot of resources and energy on airport. I think they kind of look at it as a backwater thing. I think that Linksys and Netgear basically just call up China and say, can you make the box in my color so I can go sell it? I don't think any of them are innovating at all. And I don't think that their natural instincts are to build great software. The other just observation is that before the iPhone and smartphones, cell phones just had terrible software. We forget, you all remember J2ME games and ringtones and just terrible stuff. And I think that people underestimate how interesting it could get if you had a software application-aware home network that you can build an application ecosystem on. So there it is.
Okay. So let's accelerate to the audience now. You don't have to put your cards up. We know from your home network here. It's all green. I think Mike's going to win this thing. I'm really.
Well, got to watch. What is it?
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and it looks just as overwhelming over here. Bruce.
The audience is spooking.
87 to 13.
Good luck, whoever's next.
James is going next.
You can all go home now.
We just go home now?
You can just do some healthcare stuff that nobody understands.
Baffle them with
That's what
bullshit.
usually wins this kind of thing. Yeah, they're really.
Well,
Insurance industry.
Do note this overwhelming victory for home networks in mind, because there is an Act 2 that Ping Li is going to tell us about coming up later. This is trend number 4 by Brian Roberts. The health industry mimics Kodak and goes poof. Parenthetically, September 2012 is when Apple beat Microsoft's all-time record for market value, 2/3 of $1 trillion. That was the month also that Kodak went bankrupt. So that's what he means by poof. And here's the trend. All employers larger than 500 employees self-insure and have information systems that allow them to do away with physician networks, coding, and adjudication. They direct contract with healthcare providers in their geography. Take it away.
Okay, so I'm going to use Ping's strategy and go to the audience. You have 2 possibilities to answer this question. Raise your hand if either you like your insurance company or you know what they do. Okay, 2 people. I'm going to be like 99-1 on this one. Okay, so what do insurance companies do? They're a middleman that nobody trusts. Employers don't trust them. People don't trust them. Nobody in the whole ecosystem trusts them, right? And nobody likes them. They send you like 45 pieces of paper like once a month in the mail. So, in fact, the Qualcomm guys are here. Like Stanford now direct contracts with Qualcomm to do their primary care, right? Stanford does this for like 12 or 13 employers as it is. So and employers are local, providers, doctors are local, and insurance companies all exist in Hartford, Connecticut. So you're going to end up having, pick it, the Marriott here contract with some local hospital and provider and say, look, you do all my stuff. guess what? We won't spend 30% of the bill just arguing about how quickly we pay you. I'll pay you the next day. Doctor's like, you pay me the next day, I'll give you 20% off. Marriott says, you give me 20% off, I'll do this in a heartbeat. And boom, insurance companies, we know it, go away.
All right. So, panelists, hold up your paddles high.
Someone,
hold them
please.
up high.
Red
You gotta
paddle,
hold 'em up.
red paddle, please.
High, high,
Oh.
You didn't understand it. That's why you're voting yes.
Well, I'll vote no then. I go either way.
high. All right. Anyone is free to dive in, but most of you agreed, right? Did anybody disagree?
I voted yes because I just want to believe so badly that insurance companies will go away and that will be how it goes. But it seems like everything in healthcare has been so dysfunctional that I do want to believe, though.
I mean, the only question I would have is the time frame. 3 to 5 years seems like a short time to make some of the changes in healthcare. I think it feels like it needs to happen, but it seems like an industry that will not turn over in 3 to 5 years, right? So.
To me, this reminds me a little bit of Rebecca's point about the banks. Like, it depends on how extreme you want to interpret your statement, right?
This goes poof.
Right, so like, if you're going to say they go poof and there's no insurance companies left, right, that they're just totally obliterated, that's hard to support. But I'm sort of with you, Rebecca. I want to believe it's true so bad that I vote yes.
That's all I need.
But isn't the problem that makes the timing difficult is, once again, you're in the realm of regulated industries. I mean, if healthcare were entirely free market to begin with, you could make a bet in the 3 to 5 year time frame, but that's the sticky thing. So how do you guys, within the period of time that you need to make your investments, how do you wrestle with such a issue?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't know. I thought you were asking Mike or somebody. So I think every insurance company actually in the United States is madly trying to get out of the business that I think is going to go away, right? They're all trying to, they've spent 100 years not caring about the actual end consumer, the patient, right? They're now madly trying to figure out how to get around the employer and get to the patient. They're buying IT systems, everything other than what they used to do, which is, build physician networks and help, transact funds. So I think that actually for a lot of I think if you went and talked to the Fortune 500, they would all say direct contracting, absolutely, that's exactly what we want to do. So I would invest in that today.
What about the self-employed? What about the retirees who don't have jobs?
Well, but they're all covered by the government.
So is the government going to do this too? You consider them like a Stanford or a Mayo Clinic?
No, I think you're saying the government would go poof, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, you guys at Forbes may want the government to go poof. I don't think that happens.
Well,
right? They're just
unless we're running for president. Yeah.
There you go.
Well, let's move to the audience. What do you guys think?
Killed.
Something happened on the way to the hospital over here.
It's going to be a great investment idea.
It looks to me like this one is a hard lift. Let's
Being contrarian
see if it
and right.
bears out.
That's right.
That's right. The 26th annual Tech Awards. I'll be back.
He was mocked, but he was right.
Exactly.
They said it couldn't be done.
Well, Bryan, you won the panel, but not the crowd on that one.
Right.
It's all right.
All right. This next one from James. Just so you know, he did say some of this in Forbes a couple years ago, so we won't hold that against him, of course. But however, it was one of the most well-read stories on Forbes that year. So, and he's going to update it for us. But it's the last-second economy. Still holds. In 5 years, we will live in the last-second economy. The rise of mobile on-demand services will extend well beyond taxis, Uber, Lyft, and food delivery, Google, probably Facebook next, redefining how we live, work, and play. James, take it away.
All right, cue the slides, please. Dancers, could you have the dancers come in? I just wasted like 4 seconds. Okay, so look, I think that the most powerful trend that I see that's at the intersection of business, technology, and culture is what I call the last second economy, which I think there's a part of this which is now very clear, which is actually what I wrote about a couple of years ago. But I think there's a new wave that's coming that actually is a lot less obvious, but which I'm really more excited about. So, I mean, the core concept is just that with smartphones, we're all now transacting with compressed planning cycles, addictive ease, and expectations of very high service quality on our phones. And you've seen that now play out across the service economy, right? So there are lots of people who are willing for 10 to 20 bucks an hour to do things for you, whether it's give you a ride or a plethora of other things. And so, but the trend that I'm actually more focused on is actually the impact of the last second economy on knowledge work. I think this will play out in 2 different ways. So one is, if you think about healthcare as an example where Bryan invests, the idea that it's 2 o'clock in the morning and your kid has a temperature and spots on his face, rather than going down to urgent care, you'll be able to just pull up your phone and have a consult with a doctor on demand. If it's in the afternoon or the evening,
doctor on demand,
like his company, exactly. Like I am playing to the panel also. In the education space, if it's in the early evening and your kid is stuck on his homework, there'll be tutoring on demand. It's also going to play out very much through the business-to-business sector. So the way that people access knowledge today from other folks is very inefficient. Part of our job is to be connectors with the entrepreneurs we work with to help them actually find people who know things that can be helpful to scale their businesses. But today it's very ad hoc how that works. In the last second economy, the way this will work will be if you're trying to find,
one more second.
Okay. If you're trying to find an immigration lawyer, you'll be able to find somebody on demand. If you're trying to talk to someone who started a business similar to yours, let's say a restaurant, you'll be able to actually also access them on demand. So it's basically like phone a friend. And there'll be some massive companies that are built based upon this trend. Again, not just the last second economy for the for the service worker. It's have much broader implications for the knowledge economy.
Okay. Paddles. Let's see those paddles. You got.
Yeah, hold them up high.
I give it to him.
Green, 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 green. Wow. Okay. Consensus is bad. Bad for panel craft. Mike, do you want to? Does anyone have a? Is it all green because you think it's here now, or is it green because you're absolutely convinced, or you've got money on this trend, or what?
My life revolves around Amazon Prime and the instantaneous or next day delivery. So I think it's here now.
I guess the other observation that I've been seeing, we invested in the sharing economy a while ago, like with Chegg, textbook rentals, but there's this multiplier effect with mobile on the front end. And so when you combine like a mobile front end wow factor experience with sharing economy back end, you have instantaneous access to anything for the consumer. And then it's kind of like Reid Hoffman's idea of the startup of you. It allows every individual person to broadcast their talent and their labor and to avoid the agency costs of being part of a corporation. And I just think that those 2 things combined just have this wildly powerful multiplier effect.
I think crowdsourcing in general has a phenomenal multiplier effect where you can just tap the crowd and instantly get back not just one decision, but 10,000 decisions in a very short period of time. So I think that's just an incredibly powerful aspect of the connected world that we're all in right now.
Yeah, I think we all have a lot of investments that ride on this theme, and it's hard to bet against the trend. And the marketplace effects are really powerful. Kind of once you get it going and you have this community built around it, the supply and demand liquidity that these mobile platforms can bring and democratize these services so quickly, I think is creating a lot of these services that are happening overnight. I mean, these things are not taking years to happen; they're taking months before they.
You just take
really
all the
take
friction out of the process.
So. Can I?
Yeah, you could. Yeah.
Do I get to rebut, or I guess I don't. Whatever it is.
Just reinforce how right you are. Go ahead.
So I think the big trend also is just that the information problem is very well solved now through Google. If you want to look up something and get an answer, you can do it easily on your computer or on the phone. But if you want to access knowledge, basically to get information that's in context that you can do something actionable with, it's still not solved. It's still very broken. And so I think that's the big bet, and it's what Ping said, which is basically that the mobile phone, people check their phones on average 150 times a day. And so part of it is that people will develop habits around getting answers to help them in their work or in their lives through their phone, through other people. But also part of it is the supply side, is that actually, in the past, it's been hard to actually access people who have knowledge, and the liquidity will also come on the supply side from people who have knowledge having their phones and being able to either provide their availability or provide an answer.
Do you think there's a even further implication where the phone and the system and the Skynet actually anticipates what you need next so that you don't have to even do anything? Is that already an investable thesis, or is that?
I think there's a lot happening around anticipatory computing and anticipatory apps, and I think there's definitely exciting stuff there, definitely based on understanding your context.
Yeah.
So,
all right, let's.
You know on American Idol when they go like this?
Yeah.
They try to get people to vote for them. Have you seen that? They go like this.
5.
Where they smile, they're like. I'll do anything for your vote.
You were born for this. Okay. Let's throw it out there. Yeah.
Wow.
All right.
Sweet.
It's coming up on
Winner,
Mike's.
winner, chicken dinner.
Coming up on Mike's.
2 reds over here.
I gotta say.
Somebody's delayed gratification table over there.
The Midwest table.
The Midwest table.
Close.
Yeah, see?
One of the reds was from the guy who sat next to me at dinner, by the way.
Yeah,
so.
that was
Turned
overwhelming.
down.
The question is it non-obvious? We'll settle that one later.
I think mine won for non-obvious.
Trend number 6, this is going to be really good because remember how Mike Maples said the future is going to be smart homes? And you all, I mean, that was an overwhelming, everybody believed in that. Now the other shoe drops. Cyber attacks in smart homes. Cyber attacks and future target in the home. Today's cyber warfare has taken down the most robust enterprises and governments. As the Internet of Things pervade throughout our consumer lives, every device in the home and consumer applications, thermostats, cars, refrigerators, etc., will be connected and vulnerable to massive cyber attacks. Large-scale cyber terrorism will strike in the home at alarming scale. You know, my stupid smartphone, I was typing the Internet of Things not long ago, and it came out the Internet of Thongs. So maybe those get attacked too. But,
Anticipatory. On demand, less.
Exactly.
You got,
just one letter.
hey,
Just one.
Bruce, you got to clear your cookies more often, buddy.
I'm pretty sure the hackers are going to stay away from your thumbs. So you're safe.
Not enough to do in Midwest.
Very bored.
So we invest a lot in security companies. We're seeing some incredibly nasty attacks and hackers at the enterprise level with financial institutions and the governments and massive cyber warfare where every other government in the world right now. But if you kind of unroll what happened at Target, they attacked the HVAC system. That is how they got people's usernames and passwords. And if you kind of extrapolate that to a lot of stuff that Mike was referring to earlier, the home is going to be an internet-connected device of many devices. And I think the terrorists and the hackers are going to be ripe in targeting those things. Imagine everyone's cars is now Android enabled, and they all have an operating system, and they all are Wi-Fi and cellular enabled. I mean, the imagination does not need to run too far before you can see the scale and the pervasiveness of some of the attacks that can happen. And I think we're starting to see that even in the enterprise, but I think it's going to become pretty scary in the consumer. That's an area that I think will become increasingly more interesting to invest in, I should say, not to.
Okay, let's see a show of the paddles from the panelists and hold them up high. Hold them up high, 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 high. Another, okay, we have Brian's skeptic. Okay, Brian, why don't you chime in?
So the question becomes whether or not with one terrorist attack, you can hit 1 million homes, right? And so if it becomes that fluid, sure, but otherwise nobody cares. I mean, maybe Mike's home because he's super important, right? You'd want to go after him, but no one cares about my home, right? It's too small a unit of destruction. So it's, to me, the skepticism is over. Can you in fact take out, you know, every home in a 200-mile square area because there's so much liquidity in the ability to go after it.
But you're discounting the angry ex-girlfriend or boyfriend.
It's trying to get you back for the.
I know, for the whole Internet of Thongs
Yeah,
thing.
I mean, I think
that was retaliation.
I agree with Bryan. I mean, you look at it in terrorist attacks when they were at Target, right? They're not at the little tiny stores, and even like physical attacks are always in like large, well-known cities, and they don't hit the Midwest, for example. Knock on wood, right? Pretty much.
They wouldn't know.
You're just ordering thongs.
They don't know where we live. So I just don't think that there has to be a high target value.
Well,
right?
okay, so the Occupy movement vandalized Atherton not long ago, right? Or
That's
some
a high target
movement
value.
like that. I mean, would that be anyone's definition of a target-rich environment of scale enough that would invite hackers in? Lee, you're.
That would be like the wealthiest community in the nation. So yeah, that probably would be a pretty high target value. But when you're looking at most cities in the United States or towns, I just can't see it.
No, I think it's happening. I mean, are there any other journalists in the room besides us? Okay, because we've got a story coming out later this week. There's a researcher at Columbia University who, using a drone and a high-powered transmitter, can rebroadcast using hybrid internet television and pack 20,000 TVs at once, just like over a neighborhood, and take over your television through your internet connected TV, and sign into Facebook as you, spam your Facebook wall, grab your credit card information. It can happen, and it's not just one-to-one, but you can get like a whole neighborhood at once.
So I'm going to come to Ping's side on this one, I think. So the thing that I think could happen could end up being kind of subtle. Like, let's say that you invade a whole bunch of houses over the period of 3.5 years and harvest everybody's credit cards and just take off. And so, like, I don't think it's necessarily, oh my gosh, I'm going to try to disable the whole country full of houses in one fell swoop. I think the average hacker is much less idealistic than they are capitalistic. I think they just want to get easy money. And so, I think about the average home, how careful are they with their passwords? How smart are they about where they put their files? It just feels to me like, a good hacker could just own a ton of houses if they're patient and intelligent about how they do it.
So your analogy is really more like mailbox theft, right? There are people that go and just, take the mail out of mailboxes to get people's Social Security checks. So now this is just an easier, more
it's just
intelligent way
like
to do it.
phishing writ large.
Got it. I would buy that more.
So the shocking moment, I think the Pearl Harbor moment would be if suddenly a substantial portion of the population woke up to see that they had no money in their 401k. And so are you suggesting that that attack is not, Schwab is pretty impenetrable, but people's homes are much more penetrable?
Most security attacks these days are incredibly subtle. They're not frontal assaults on organizations, and there are bots that sit there that are dormant for years sometime before they surface themselves, which is why they're so hard to find. And I think it's not hard to hit a lot of homes very easily because it's easier to get to a lot of homes than it is to get into JP Morgan Chase. I can guarantee you their networks are much more sophisticated. So I think one of the great sayings in security is if you don't think you've been hacked, you've already been hacked. And I think that's going to be something that we're going to live with as part of our everyday lives, just like we have to secure our doors from burglars coming in and things like that. That will just be a way of life that we need to think about in everything we do at home.
Well, let's go to
I think that I agree that there's not a lot of awareness about this right now, but that I think that there will be. I think the identity theft, like those, were the right analogies or metaphors. And I do think there'll be at some point pressure from people to want their homes to be cryptographically, demonstrably secure, so they actually don't feel like they need to worry. So I think this is going to happen.
Sounds like an opportunity for a startup.
Okay, Lee, do you have any further thoughts on that? I think you have a minute here before we get the final.
No, I mean I think it is the more subtle attacks that are going to scare more people, because you're going to find out about it a year later that half the neighborhood got all their passwords, all their privacy, everything stolen, their 401ks are gone, and there's nothing you can do about it, right? And I think that's just going to be one of those things that are going to be on the front page of the journal, but it's going to be a reactive thing. Security is always an afterthought. No one ever thinks about securing themselves till they get hacked, right? And and I think it's in a 3 to 5 year period. I can't imagine this won't happen.
All right, let's see what the audience thinks.
70-30.
I think without a great sense of joy, you really won them over, Ping. Let's see what we're looking like over here. Pretty much the same, 2/3 and a third. All right.
All right.
Great.
Trend number 7. The future of healthcare begins with data from your gut. Medical decisions today are more art than science, but data is changing that. Data on outcomes and new sources of data, from genomics to the microbiome, will inform decisions of the future.
So I predict that the unleashing of massive amounts of patient and medical data, as well as data generated from big breakthroughs in genomic sequencing, as well as the understanding of the microbiome, are really going to change the face of the healthcare system. And I'm going to go out way, way, way out on a limb here and say, just imagine a day when healthcare decisions are actually made on real data. And this could actually be a huge stretch, right? And it was shocking for me to learn, and I don't know how many of you guys have been through this, but if you've been through a major medical issue, and you ask your doctor, you're like, that procedure you just recommended, tell me about the study that was done that shows I should be doing this. And you suddenly find it was a study of like 20 to 40 people. By the way, really couldn't be replicated, but that's what they think you should do. I've been in this situation, and I know many others have as well. And my prediction is this really is all going to change. And the unleashing of data in electronic medical records, combined with that from mobile trackers, all pulled together in APIs, are going to actually allow for the day when decisions in medicine will be made on actual outcomes and results. And even more exciting are new sources of data from genomic sequencing and a whole new area of microbiome research that suggests that the bugs that actually live in your gut have a lot to do with your health. And they're actually directly related to things like obesity, allergies, autism, and even cancer. So really reinforcing what our mother always told us, right? That we are what we eat. And some believe that targeting this microbiome and targeting therapeutics at it will actually be the penicillin of our entire generation. And so because of these real innovations and breakthroughs in healthcare, I think we'll see more real true breakthroughs in healthcare in the next 3 to 5 years than we've seen in the last 20.
Yeah, we're not only what we are what we eat, but we're not even who we are, right? Isn't 99% of our body mass bacteria and bugs?
1 to 3% is bacteria.
Yeah.
Of body weight.
1 to 3%.
1 to 3% of our body weight is actually bacteria.
But they outnumber the human cells.
They do by about 1,000 to 1.
1,000 to 1, yeah.
Yeah. They do.
All right, so paddles. Let your gut vote with your gut. Up higher, higher, red. What? No.
Thank you, Ping.
Okay. All right, what's going on? Why? Is this a problem for you, James?
James, do tell us.
Bryan knows a lot about healthcare, and when I looked at the back of his panel, I figured the front was red, and I was like, I'm going with it. Look, Rebecca's a force to be reckoned with. I saw 85% up there, and it's game theory. No, so look, the question I have is just I think that a lot of the patient records and outcomes, a lot of this, the information is still pen and paper and in filing cabinets, and I think there's a huge challenge just around digitizing all of this at scale so you can make the healthcare system truly data-driven. I think it will happen. I just don't know that it will happen at scale in this kind of a massive way in the next 5 years. That was my thesis of my vote.
Can I react to that?
No, you gotta wait. Hang on. First, they have to pile on, then you can dig your way out. But I want to hear from Bryan because Brian's a PhD in molecular genomics.
So I actually don't think the issue is getting data from paper to electronics. I think the issue is our understanding of biology. So yes, there's cystic fibrosis. You have a genetic mutation, you have cystic fibrosis. That's pretty simple. But lots of diseases, we still don't actually understand how, why. They'll do genetics now on diabetes, and you have an increased risk of like 2% for diabetes if you have a genetic mutation. Well, terrific, but that what's the other 98%? CNS diseases are diagnosed by symptoms, not by actually underlying etiology of disease. So I just think the biology, I think we know like single-digit % of biology actually, and so I think that's the long pole in the tent here, is actually understanding this from a molecular basis, and therefore then being able to take the data that's now electronic and all this stuff to go forward.
I guess my concern about it is, unfortunately, I believe that our healthcare system is screwed up in the same way that our education system is screwed up. It's just over-regulated and over-bureaucratized and just has a bunch of Byzantine patchworks of reasons that common sense stuff doesn't happen. And so most of the healthcare IT stuff that I see make money is stuff that helps doctors get paid faster and things like that, rather than stuff that legitimately improves healthcare. And so I guess my semi-negative reaction was just to the idea that the healthcare system operates like a free market, and that the best answer wins quick enough.
So I think this is an important trend. I think it's unacceptable that we are not using data to solve some of the problems that was articulated. You don't need to have the digitization of every single electronic healthcare record in order to do fundamental data science in these fields. And I just think very little is being done. It's starting to increase. They're finally using technologies such as Hadoop and stuff to do machine learning across even medium-sized data sets. So I think we are at the early stages, but I think it has to happen. I mean, data science has to be a part of our medicine and biology, and I think it will be important to see some of the innovations that come from it. And it's every field has always said that, has always shunned data at the beginning. And then over time, people like Google proved that data can solve a lot of interesting problems that people thought could only be done by research. So I think there's going to be a marriage of both worlds.
Yeah, I mean, similar to to what people are saying about education. Look, why are there 20,000 teachers teaching calculus 20,000 different ways when there's probably 6 great teachers that could, they could centralize around? And what Watson is doing with decision support for doctors, that Watson can read everything, and a doctor doesn't have to guess, and they could tap the knowledge of every doctor out there. But why don't you respond, Rebecca?
Yeah, so response. So one thing, and not to advertise my own companies, but so Practice Fusion is the largest cloud-based electronic medical record, and just last week opened up tens of millions of real patient records, de-identified, so that researchers could actually tap those records and draw correlations. And that was the fundamental piece of our thesis in the first place on that company. That you had to have data in the cloud, you had to have it accessible, and by the way, it had to be completely free for doctors. I just got 24 seconds. Okay. The other piece of it is I really, and really believe in the microbiome. So I'm in our IT side, not in our healthcare side, but our healthcare guys led a deal in Second Genome, and I got really interested in this space, especially after learning that our whole gut system is our sort of second brain, right? And neurotransmitters are often made there. And so when you look at even children with autism, what they're finding is serotonin levels are increased, which are actually made in our gut. And things like taking antibiotics wreak havoc on our entire microbiome population there. So I think there actually will be real therapeutic medical breakthroughs as we understand that biology better. And to Brian's point, that might take longer than 5 years, but I actually think we're closer than we think.
I spent a couple days at Mayo doing research for my book. This is last August, and Mayo's welcoming Watson and believes that Watson will simply be another seat at the table. So the consulting doctors will be Smith, Jones, and Watson on a complex case. So again, it's one of those not completely either or, but Watson supplementing.
Yeah. Well, the naysayers clearly did not convince the audience, but let's see your cards. Yeah. All right. A lot of green. All right.
Yeah, 71 to 29. So
pretty good. Pretty good. Well done.
Trend number 8. Who's going to vote against this? A female founder CEO creates a $50 billion exit company. Mike Maples offered this great idea. Encouraged by lower barriers to experimentation, excellent founders emerge from untraditional places. We'll see a woman start a company that succeeds on the scale of a Google, Facebook, or Twitter.
Yeah, so I'm kind of already starting with 2 strikes here. First of all, here I am, a guy talking about an issue that relates to women, and I get tired of reading articles where men debate what should happen with women in the tech industry. The second thing is, it's just, you know, I wish my partner Ann Miraco was here to talk about this, but I think it's important, and I think that the dialogue around the role of females in technology and venture capital has been a very low quality discourse in the press right now. Here's a perspective I wanted to offer. The last 10 years, I've seen the barriers to trying a startup experiment collapse like never before. And the initial wave of that has been lean startups. But the collapsing barriers of innovation is much more profound than lean startups. Collapsing barriers of innovation democratize innovation. And it lets entrepreneurs happen where they didn't exist before. In the year 2000, for the first time, a computer could beat any person in the world at chess. And now an average computer can beat any person in the world at chess. Now 2 of the top 10 chess players in the world are women. And the reason that's true is you don't have to live near Moscow, Russia to be a great chess player anymore. You can play a chess game online that's better than any other human in the world. So now you have Lebanese chess players who are awesome, women, Norwegian prodigies who are young in their early teens. So I believe what will happen is that the low barriers to innovation will cause entrepreneurs to emerge from unexpected places. They will no longer be just the people who get anointed by the high priest of Sand Hill Road. I believe that, that more opportunities for capitalist mutations will come from different places and different types of people, particularly as everybody in the world gets connected. And I think that there will be a female who starts a company that is not merely a successful company, but that is the type of platform, legendary, build an industry around it kind of company. And that will probably change things more than anything else that people are talking about, because then other women will believe it can happen, other VCs will think they need a strategy for it to happen so that they can be relevant in the markets of the future. And so that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I think that the collapsing barriers of innovation will eliminate the barriers to the creative class to it happening.
All right, panelists, paddles high.
Get your damn paddles up.
I didn't see yours, Bryan. Okay.
So let me try and come up with an argument against this. Okay, well, no,
I have a paddle.
So it's a question of mass action and time, right? So I agree with everything Mike says, but will there be a $50 billion exit is huge, is really tough to come by, right?
It'd have to start now, so the woman would already have to be in place.
Frick,
right?
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to think
it's
of.
a question, if you
Actually,
lowered
no
it
one.
if you lowered it to 5 billion or something, then in a heartbeat, right? But how many
Okay, so
$50 billion companies?
let's name how many women CEOs we know. So Adiat House is a chance, right? She's got a shot at this in 5 years. Who else would it be?
Diane Green could have gotten there.
Diane Green could have gotten there had she not sold.
Yeah.
Well, if you look
VMware.
But it's a handful. Like we can
Diane's
think her
got a
name
new
maybe
company,
5,
so
right?
That
Maybe
is
5.
if you look at the data in the consumer internet space, that's just the space I know. there are, I think, 4 companies in the United States, at least, that are worth north of $50 billion, right? 3 of them were, was Amazon, Google, eBay, and then Facebook is really the only one that's.
Did we forget Cisco? Cisco was started by a husband and wife.
Consumer
I'm saying
internet.
consumer internet.
Consumer
You know,
internet.
pure consumer internet companies. I think
but
there are 4 in the period of 20 to 25
Yeah.
years. And then there are maybe 20 to 25 public consumer internet companies that are worth north of $1 billion, right? So I mean, you know, I don't know what it is on the enterprise side. So if you were to, you know, take the other side on this, I think it would be just look how many companies will be built that are actually worth north of 50 billion. There might be 1
So
or 2.
right now there's 4 out of 50,000
Well,
companies started in that time frame.
But and
So
by
it's
the
just that.
way, how many? They would have already have to been at least Series A funded right now to probably get there. And how many women are CEOs of those startups? And I can only think of 1 that has a shot at this, right? So I mean that's kind
Let's
of
all
the
root for.
what?
Let's all root for.
I do. I love the company. I use it every day, actually. So, but yeah, I think that's true. I mean, and I will say one of the numbers I've been trying to get corrected, just because I'm a math person, is this whole report in venture that there's 11% of women in venture capital. I'm like, that's just bullshit. I mean, I don't feel that, right? And so one day I saw it again, and I saw the Midas list, which reported, 11% of women in venture capital, but only 4 out of 10 or 4 out of 100 were women. I'm like, well, that just makes us look like shitty investors, and I don't think that's true. And so I called PitchBook, and I'm like, do me a favor. I said, pull the 100 top VC firms, and from there, don't give me the marketing and the recruiting people. I only want to see the people who are at least on 1 company board, only those people. And they pulled it, and I said, the number I think is 4%. Well, it was 4.2%, right? And then if you subtract out corporate people, corporate venture capitalists, and just sandhole road people, it's 3%, which is exactly the number of women-funded startups. And so I do think there is something to that in terms of 3% of women are venture capitalists, and 3% of companies are backed by venture capitalists are women-founded. And I think there's really something to that trend. And so that was just a really surprising and interesting correlation. And I think part of it is that, if you look at the numbers and you think, God, what are my chances? I mean, as a woman, you're like, God, if I go, my chances of getting funded are slim, right? So why try? And I think, my rebuttal is you should, because they have to pick someone, and it probably should be you, right? And so you should put your name out there and try. And I think the only way you change that is really, like you said, by examples. And I think Adi has the best chance.
Well, I would point out historically, Cisco was started by a husband and wife team in the 1980s. Now, the founding team didn't last long before Sequoia brought in quote-unquote professional management. I'll also point out sometimes the most progressive areas, the places we think of as the most progressive areas in the country are the least progressive when it comes to this. Twitter being a great example of a company that went public without anyone of color or any female on its board of directors. The situation's since changed. While Fred Smith of FedEx put Judy Estrin of Silicon Valley on his board of directors in 1989. So, I agree with you, Mike, that these developments come from unexpected places.
Yeah, and I guess the one thing I would add to this is I tend to come at this question not from an affirmative action point of view, right? I tend to come at this question from the world will change when somebody just wins. Just win, baby, right, is how I look at it. Sure. And so the core to my argument is that the conditions exist for that to happen like they didn't exist before the 2000s. That before the 2000s, you just had to overcome a certain set of hurdles to get VC money. The cost of proving your idea, of making the initial idea work. So I guess my argument is that the barriers to that happening have gone away.
If you actually didn't end when you needed to end,
sorry.
if you have anything more to add, or
yeah. So I guess what I'm trying to do is make sure that I'm not trying to pander to women. I'm not trying to do that typical thing. I'm trying to say that the way you make progress on this issue in Silicon Valley is for somebody to win massively. And that's why I put 50 billion out as a target. 1 billion would have been a wuss target. 5 billion would have been a wuss target. $50 billion, right? That's a company that is legendary, Thunder Lizard, huge, game-changing, truly disruptive. And that's what I think will happen. And I think it, not only does it need to happen in my view, but I think it will happen because I think the conditions exist for it to happen in terms of adoption of technology and in terms of the collapsing barriers to innovation.
All right, what does the audience think?
I'm voting for Jessica Alba, by the way. The Honest Company.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about her. Yeah, she would be good too.
I'm sure.
more reds in the audience
let's
than on
let's
that,
just
which
put a
is
twist on this. How many of you want it to happen?
Yeah.
I mean, it's all green.
Right,
But there are skeptics in the audience.
I was almost going to
And,
guess the exact reason you did.
You know, third of the people think they're. I guess the barriers are still there, Mike.
Yep.
Yeah. And can I say one thing?
Yeah.
Like, I really think this is a matter of time, to be honest. I mean, if I just got through reading my daughter a book about Elizabeth Blackwell. And it was all about like how women could be doctors, and I guess it was not that long ago where there were 0 women doctors, right? And now you look at medical schools and it's 60%. You look at vet schools and it's 90%, like 90%. And by the way, vet school is harder to get into than medical school. And so, so you're looking at these different industries, and I think it really is changing. I mean, when I went through engineering school, I started out as a mechanical engineer. I was literally the only woman. I couldn't take it. And I went into chemical engineering, which was, you know, maybe 20% women, which was a little bit more sustainable. And now you look at Stanford and the She++ movement and all of that, and I really do see the changes, and I just think it has to roll through, and you need people to, no affirmative action, because I think nobody wants to be there unless they absolutely earned it. But I just think it's a matter of time and role models, and to your point, you know, a huge win, and I think the gate opens up.
All right, Bruce.
All right, slightly change of subject. Try number 9, spot pricing for healthcare procedures. Given the large fixed costs and low utilization of the healthcare system, services and procedures will evolve to dynamic and real-time pricing like other industries. X-rays, MRIs, and hospital beds, bypass surgeries, angioplasties, and colonoscopies will be up for bid, I suppose, and change in price given the time and demand.
This is my version of the last-second economy.
The last-second colonoscopy.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's good.
Well, so
Do I hear $40?
exactly. So this one's actually pretty simple for me, like the other one. So maybe I'll be most improved on the panel from one trend to another. Right? Is that every individual now in the United States is paying a bigger part of their healthcare bill, so they care more about the dollars they write out of their own pocket, and a whole ton of the visits in healthcare are to sort of capital equipment-like things, a hospital bed, an X-ray, an MRI, and all of them run at like half utilization. And so why on earth wouldn't you get, you know, a cheaper price if you're willing to go in at 8 o'clock on a Friday night than, you know, lunchtime on a Wednesday? And why wouldn't you agree to do that? That's my whole thing.
All right. Panel. What are you doing for lunch tomorrow? Yes. Mike?
Mike, you're my vote. Oh,
Mike,
that's
get your
good.
pedals
You guys,
up. Get
if
a
you
little
guys
higher,
vote against me,
a little
they'll
higher.
vote for me.
A little higher, James. A little higher, higher.
Sorry.
Okay. So we got two
I'm
no's
split.
and a split and a yes. Well, that's weird. Okay, let's discuss. What's going on? Ping, you want to explain?
Sure. I think it sounds really good, and you know I studied economics in the past, but this is not a. I think there's some implications here. I don't think necessarily your standard of care should be driven by, you know, how much you can pay. You can see a situation where, because there's a scarcity of beds, the person that has the most money should be able to outbid the person that actually needs the bed more. And I think it creates some externalities that I don't know if it's necessarily the intended consequences. Pricing, efficient markets work really well when there's good reservation pricing here that's very objective. And I think in this case, it's not as obvious that you can be so objective in terms of the value to one person may be different than another. So I don't know if the marketplace effects will be as efficient as it's being articulated.
So the underutilization of medical equipment never ceases to amaze me. I think there's a whole business around just like utilizing MRI machines outside of the 9 to 4:30 business hours with an hour off for lunch, right? I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable. And I guess doctors and hospitals think that's just when everyone has time to come see them, and that's when everyone gets sick, right? And if we don't think rationing exists today, I've got news for you. I mean, sometimes you try to get an MRI, and they're like, oh yeah, that'll be 2 months down the road. And you're like, it's sitting there idle on weekends. It's sitting there idle in the evenings. And near the hour when everyone's off for lunch, it's idle too. I mean, it's pretty phenomenal just how inefficient, when you've got a fixed cost asset, our medical system is. So I totally hope the spot pricing thing happens where you can push after hours utilization. That makes a tremendous amount of sense to me. The thing that he included colonoscopies and some procedural things in there, and that's where I said no. Because I do think that going to the doctor is sort of more like getting your hair done for most people, where the salon down the street might be cheaper, but you know the person at your current salon, you know they're just not going to mess anything up, right? So I think that's where I was split. So if you've got, going to go get an X-ray, going to get an MRI, I can do it at a more convenient time, and if I do it at 8 o'clock on a Saturday night, it's going to be half price. Why not? Who wouldn't do that? And by the way, it's probably more efficient because if I can't afford to pay for it, I don't have to take off work and lose pay to go when it's convenient for the doctor. Makes sense. Now, if it's going to get a procedure where I have to see my doctor, and I don't think all doctors are going to do it the same way, I think that's a very different thing, and that's where I'm split.
But the scarcity isn't the X-ray machine. It's the people that operate the
Oh, they're not scarce at all. They're temps. They make $65 an hour.
Yeah,
they're not scarce.
But they don't want to work.
They totally want to work. Okay, I started a company actually in 3D ultrasound and stuff, and they totally want weekend work. They'll do it all day. It's just not available because doctors don't want to be there to man it.
Okay, so then the doctors are the scarcity. I'm saying the issue isn't the fact that the machines aren't. I totally understand underutilized
There's totally
resources,
but
the issue, there's a scarcity somewhere else that you need to solve. So I mean, maybe
doctors will moonlight all day.
Clearly they won't, or else they
don't do. It's not efficient. It's something called the doctors union, right? Yeah. I mean, it's just not efficient.
Who else was a no?
I guess I'm a no just because I just think healthcare is just wildly inefficient, right? And so, I just sort of reject the premise that they're trying to find market clearing prices and be more efficient, because otherwise I wouldn't have to wait with my daughter in the emergency room for 3 hours to have somebody look at her for 5 minutes and say you're okay. And so, I just think that's not the area where I typically see healthcare innovation. I wish I did, but I guess I just don't see it happening because of so many Byzantine reasons that I can't even predict that are screwed up about healthcare.
But James,
I saw a connection between this and Bryan's earlier trend around just.
You say, Sam, I'm going to be 3171 again up on the slide.
I think a lot of this can be understood by just who pays. I think the idea, for example, that large employers self-insure, I think there's much more of a drive towards efficiency, towards trying to line up, reasonable, quality care and good outcomes, but also at more manageable costs. And so I thought that was a driver that will actually support this kind of marketplace happening. And then the other thing was what was commented on earlier is just if you look at some of the best marketplace businesses that exist, have this thing in common of expensive assets that are underutilized, like your home, your car, et cetera.
What if does this apply to psychiatry too? Like if you're really screwed up, it costs more? Sorry.
Me or James?
Yeah,
I'm
just
James.
throwing it out there. No,
definitely not for me.
Just throwing it out there. But go ahead and rebut your naysayers.
I don't want to rebut it. The deal's going to be a lot cheaper now because no one else likes it. It's going to be. I'm going to make the investment super cheap. Look,
That's the first time anyone's ever used that as
you
an
can come
excuse
in on
for
it
why
too.
they're wrong.
You've got the 2 best deals.
Right? I got the
two
best deals
tonight.
So I guess the only broad thesis I would give you is that I think there are essentially 2 different types of healthcare. There's sort of meat and potatoes healthcare where the cost quality curve's super flat. And I think colonoscopies, I think stents fits into that. Like everyone's going, oh my God, I got a good stent. They put in like 100,000, 1 million stents a year. It's there's probably a 2 basis point percentage of the doctor universe that's really going to screw it up. But other than that, it's kind of like being a plumber or an electrician. So, so there's that stuff, right? And I don't think necessarily, as Ping says, that I'm talking about going to one different doctor or another. I think the same doctor will give you different prices depending on whether it's when they've got 10 people who want to use something or none.
They're already doing it. Like in Oklahoma, they have doctors that are at hospitals.
In the Midwest.
And then a surgery center.
It's in the Midwest. That's the leading trend.
Same doctor, better facilities, 1/3 the price if you go to a surgery center, and 3x that if you go to the hospital.
Right. They had a thing called
See,
Health
everybody
South.
said no again to me.
Okay. And I'm not even a healthcare investor.
Did I at least do
let's
better?
see a show of hands. Red is, this is obvious and not going to happen. Green is this is non-obvious and might happen.
I'm going to invest with
You guys, this has to happen or our country's going to go bankrupt.
contrarian guy.
contrarian, yeah.
Wow, okay. All right, they don't like that one either,
Nope.
Bryan.
I'm 0 for 2.
We're going to lose Bryan from this evening.
Again, the
next
26th
year.
annual.
All right, we are down to our last one. Credit cards. Credit cards are the new app platform. This is from James Slavet. Credit cards are ubiquitous, but they are also pretty dumb. That is going to change. We're at the early stages of a massive wave of innovation in the payment industry.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of heat right now among investors around fintech, so the intersection of financial services and technology. It's some of the stuff that Rebecca talked about earlier. And I think that mobile wallets and Bitcoin, et cetera. And I actually think there's an opportunity that is sort of less sexy than that, kind of maybe contrarian, which is credit cards and the payment network are already ubiquitous, right? So 170 million people in the United States have credit or debit cards in their wallets. The average person has 3.5 cards in his or her wallets. There's 500 million credit cards literally in people's wallets in the United States today. And we also have a payment network that reaches every merchant in the United States. And so what I see as possible is basically a cloud-connected credit card, which will be like an app platform, where you'll be able to add, essentially like drag and drop applications to your card. So examples of what's possible will be, one, a card that has expanded memory. So the idea would be that the product information, the receipts, the warranties, could be coupons or loyalty cards, all the stuff that you might carry in paper or plastic or have in your desk will be accessible in the cloud and connected to your purchase history. That's one application. A second example of an application is just all the quantified self stuff. Instead of having to use Quicken to mine your spending or to compare your spending to goal or history or to other people, there actually will be a quantified self, a much stronger stream that happens based on your transaction history. You also see long tail or special use cards. So if you have a child and you want him to have access to credit in case it's an emergency, you have a 10-year-old and you want to be able to get a ride or get food, you'll be able to actually enable a card for your kid quite easily that will enable him to use it for that, but to not buy virtual goods, $200 of virtual goods on a credit card in his favorite online or mobile game. I also think that there's going to be a huge wave of innovation between the payment network and the cloud-connected card that's going to impact marketing. So if you're Nordstrom, you'll be able to run an ad on Facebook, and if the consumer actually sees the ad, they'll be able to essentially click on it, and by clicking on it, essentially register their card, so when they go and buy at Nordstrom, they'll get some kind of benefit automatically, which is basically closing the redemption loop between online marketing and offline transactions, which is basically the holy grail. It's like Google AdWords or Google Analytics for online to offline. So I guess the summary is I think that there's a lot of noise around Bitcoin and peer-to-peer lending and mobile wallets. Some of that will play out. But the big opportunity for disruption is right before us. It's in our wallets. It's 500 million credit cards and a ubiquitous payment network.
All right, panelists, hold them high.
I think it's, when you go last, like there's no opportunity for retaliation.
No.
Bryan, are you split?
I'm split.
Okay.
So the reason I'm split is I want it to be true, but I feel like the things have been in place for it to happen for a while, right? So there's been, smart credit cards and little tags on your credit card that could do all this stuff, and it hasn't happened. And so I'm split because I don't actually understand why it didn't happen, and then what's changed to make it happen.
We're pretty fond of saying here in Silicon Valley that incumbents never get anything right, and it takes startups to really affect big change. But doesn't it seem to you that MasterCard and Visa and companies like this are all over this?
I'll let other people go, and I can rebut the end here, but I'm loading up my weapon.
So I guess I have a little bit of a quibble with the way the statement was rendered, like that credit cards are the app platform. Like I think you described a bunch of cool stuff that could happen to credit cards. But what I didn't come away feeling was that, oh my gosh, credit cards are going to be as important in payments as like smartphones were, that there's going to be an entire application economy, and like there's going to be thousands upon thousands of applications that everybody gets super excited about, and that you can build an industry around credit cards. And so I just didn't really agree with the idea that it was like this fundamentally strategically relevant huge thing. I thought it was more of just like an interesting idea for a cool company someday, but not a major sea change.
Okay.
So a lot of my skepticism in this space comes from, I was at NextCard back in the day, which was the first online credit card company, and I was there from like employee 30 to we went public and at 1300. And I learned a lot about credit cards, and I learned a lot about consumers. And I just think in fintech, the only place consumers are more lazy is in healthcare, but in fintech, people are really lazy. And less than 5% of people actually balance their bank accounts. And so the whole emergence of quantified self and financial services like gets your population down to like a 1% kind of basis maybe. And so that's what makes me nervous. I mean, people just see credit cards as a way to kind of have free money and pay later. And I don't think they see them as that, and that's the core value proposition. So in credit cards, it's about the rate, the rate, the rate, the rate. And if you forgot, it's about the rate, right? And then all the other stuff is kind of nice to have on the fringes, and I just don't think you're going to move the needle by adding more features to credit cards unless it's about the rate.
So I think it's intriguing for one reason. In order to have an app ecosystem, you need to have a ubiquitous platform. And the only thing that's ubiquitous is the credit card. And I think that is kind of something that everyone has been wanting the mobile thing to be the payment thing, but there's so many changes that need to happen in the point of sales and all those other parts of the value chain. And I think it will happen over time, but in the next 3 to 5 years, I do think that this is the one thing that is ubiquitous, and it's frankly really easy to use. It's not that hard to swipe a credit card. The infrastructure is already there. And I think the ability to kind of digitize credit cards and actually personalize it is becoming much more easier than it's been in the past. So, I think that the ubiquity of it and the fact that it's already integrated into our everyday workflow, I think actually provides a really opportunity for apps to be built on top. I just don't think anyone's thought of the credit card that way. They thought about it as kind of a rate thing, and hopefully that will change.
So briefly, I'll say I think what's missing today, but it is being built, I know a number of companies that are building this, is essentially the software layer, the infrastructure to connect the payment network with the web and mobile, because they're actually, those two worlds don't really talk today, but I think they will. I think the reason we haven't seen a lot of innovation or a lot of applications, whether they're consumer applications or marketing applications, is because the software infrastructure to connect the two doesn't exist. But again, I think it will. I think it's actually coming pretty soon.
Why don't we take, anybody with any last comments? We have just a couple seconds left. Audience, what do you think? Credit cards, the new app platform.
Cloudera doesn't like it.
Okay.
Split? Yeah.
A little more skeptical than I would have thought.
Yeah.
Should close the poll before you do any worse.
You're almost like
Close to 50-50.
Exactly. Those are the things to invest in.
That was one of our tighter votes.
Yeah.
Both of yours will must invest.
Mine wasn't tight. It was just upside down.
Well, Karen, we've now done all 10, and we're going to announce some winners here, but Karen informs me that the race is so close that we're going to bring up Justin of Poll Everywhere to explain the methodology to find out this sort of razors with difference for the winner. No pressure explaining this, right? Can we, there are the results. I've been to a fair amount of events at Pull Everywhere, and I've actually never seen anyone tie before. So Smart Home and Last Second Economy both tied at 87%. So we went to the 0.1%, and they both had 87.2%. So we had to go to the 100th%, where the winner is the Last Second Economy by 2/100th%.
Squeak it out, baby.
And for the winner,
It's already played out now.
we have this doctoral Hogwarts-like tam in Churchill Club blue, and I have the honor of presenting it to James Slavet.
Thank you. Thanks.
You wear it well, sir. You wear it well.
Nice. Little John
You
here.
can take that
Yeah,
back
on
to
one
Greylock
side.
and show it to all the
Now,
all the
can I
people
ask
there.
for a
Yeah.
recount like they did in Florida?
Bruce, closing
you can adjust
thoughts?
it. It's
It's
adjustable.
going to be the combination of your
Yeah,
two.
and this was a tough one. Again, it's a, you guys have the hardest job tonight to come up with something that's non-obvious and inevitable. It's like a poem, But and you picked some very hard industries to take on: healthcare, the financial system, gender, politics, and tech. It was, and Mike, you brought some emotion to the stage, which is rare for venture capital. It's good. really like to see that. I don't know, Rich, were you surprised at all? Or?
I had the same thoughts that you did, that Silicon Valley, I think, has done a great job of picking off a lot of low-hanging fruit, but now that it goes into regulated industries, healthcare, financial services, education, and others, it must make the job of our panelists really tough, as if it isn't a tough enough job to begin with. But picking that 3 to 5 year time frame or 7 to 10 year investment time frame or whatever it is in a regulated industry is really difficult.
Yeah. So I guess we just thank them, right?
Thank them, yeah. Thank them very much.
And then you get to keep your paddles, of course. Keep them. May they always be on the green side. And you've been an amazing audience. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
That's yours, buddy, right?
Oh, yeah, it is mine. Yeah, this is yours.